Hey, Wicked Deke here. Take a look at the playoff tourists. Yes, it's that time of year. We are 6 weeks out from the NHL trade deadline on February 24th, 2020. Yes, 2020. And I've only written 2019 on about 5 checks. So let's take a look at the boys. Who's going what, where, when, why? Tyler Toffoli, out the door he goes. I think Tyler believes it. The Kings believe it. I believe it. You believe it. Tyler's dog believes it. The question is where and what do we get back? And a lot of people talk about Boston. Other people have talked about Satan's hockey team, the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I think he goes somewhere else. The Flyers. What? Yes, the Flyers. So the Flyers have a unique little problem. They're right on the edge of the playoffs. I think they're in second wild card position, maybe one position below it right now, in the very, very competitive East. But obviously, Oscar Lindblom, they lost him to the very unfortunate cancer diagnosis. And Nolan Patrick hasn't played all year because he's got some migraine problem, probably associated with being in Philly. So they're a bit light on secondary scoring, and Toffoli would be the perfect kind of guy to come in. And this would be good for the Kings because, of course, Ron Hextall is out in Philly, which means they've gone back to the old guard who way overpay for players they trade for or sign. Kevin Hayes. So I think the Flyers would kick out a first-round draft pick for Tyler Toffoli. I really do. Chuck Fletcher is the GM now. He is the handpicked puppet of Paul Holmgren. Yes, I know Paul Holmgren retired. Yeah, he did. And Fletcher has shown a habit when he was with Minnesota Wild of making awful trades, way overpaying. So I'm telling you now, we're getting the Flyers' first-round pick for Tyler Toffoli. Number 2, a lot of people talk about Alex Martinez, but I think the more likely guy to go is Jack Campbell. Kings obviously have a little backup at goalie, and yes, we had the expansion draft coming, but now would be a good time to get rid of him. Now, I know you're probably thinking, trade quick. To who? Yes, he's playing better, but that contract is still a bitch. Campbell's contract is a thing of beauty. Not only is he getting something like $700,000 this year, but he gets a 2-year extension that kicks in next year for something like, I don't know, $1.5 million a year or something like that. It's nothing big. So team can trade for him, bring him in, have him either be a complimentary goalie or take over the number 1 position. And if it doesn't work out, not a big deal. It's not like you blew half the salary cap on him. Now the perfect team for this would be the Columbus Blue Jackets. As you know, Bob left, and they've had all kinds of injuries to their other goaltenders. You can look up John Tortorella's rant online about how one of them got injured. And, of course, they're down to having Elvis starting for them in net. Now, he looked good against the Kings because, of course he did. The Kings make every goalie look good. If you got on skates and put on goalie pads tomorrow and it was your first time ever being on ice, I'm pretty sure you'd shut out the Kings. But the problem for Columbus is they kind of blew their load last year when they were trading for all those guys to try to get into the playoffs and make a run. They don't really have many draft picks left. They don't even have a second this year. Or first, I believe. So I don't think the Kings will settle for that. Instead, I think they end up sending Campbell to Buffalo. If you watch the Sabres play, I've had the mediocre joy of having watched that a good bit over the holidays, thanks to some family obligations. They're an odd team. They have some real talent, and but they just have some kind of fundamental underperforming players. Not even underperforming; they're just inconsistent. You need a consistent goalie. You need to know, night in, night out, the shots that should be stopped for the most part are going to be stopped. And you don't really see that with Buffalo. So I think Campbell could go in there and be the savior. He could really make a huge difference there. And again, because of his contract, Buffalo wouldn't be taking a huge risk. Obviously, we'd want back Eichel and Dahlin and their next 5 first-round picks. But more realistically, they would probably be willing to give up a second for Campbell. And so, to me, I think that would be a good move. We bring Peterson up from the AHL before his confidence is completely destroyed playing behind a peewee team down there and getting shellacked 9-0 every couple of games. Kings are not doing a service to some people down in the AHL. I mean, they're just completely devoid of talent, in a lot of ways with the World Juniors, and then of course with Kupari being injured and bringing guys up, and it's a bit of a mess. So maybe getting Peterson out of there before he suffers some irreparable damage might be a smart move. Have him come up, back up quick, share starts with him this year, and then slowly become the starter over the next couple of years. And we can expose Quick to the expansion draft for Seattle. I don't think Seattle would take him, but if he did, not a big deal. Third, Alex Martinez. I was kind of surprised Martinez wasn't traded last year, but I guess the Kings just didn't feel their defense was sufficiently developed that they could lose him, or certainly afford to lose him. This year, they can. We just saw Martinez out for nearly a month, and I don't know about you, but I didn't notice much of a difference. So it's time for him to go, and he has a good contract. He's got this year and next year at $4 million. So again, not so much money that it's going to scare people, but the team trading for him is going to get something more than just the benefit of this year. And so that's pretty solid. Now, there is a team that is desperately crying out for defenders that is making a playoff run in the NHL, and you probably know about it, know about this team as I do. Hint, to the right, hint. Yes, the Winnipeg Jets. So the Jets traded Trouba in the offseason because he hated being in Winnipeg. Myers left for Vancouver, and the big buff, while dragging his nearly decapitated ankle down the street, gave the Jets the proverbial middle finger. And the end result, of course, the Jets' defensive core is probably the worst in the league. Now they have Morrissey, and some prospects who could become something, but they're really hurting. They just really are. And Alex Martinez would be kind of a perfect second pairing defenseman for them. Somebody who could come in, provide steady minutes, a little bit of offense here and there. And that would be great. Now, there's some rumors that Big Buff may come back, but if you actually go read the stories about Buff, I'm a Big Buff fan, so I actually read stories about him, follow him. His relationship with Winnipeg is not good. It wasn't good before all this started. And so he may come back, but I tend to think he may not want to play for the Jets. So maybe a situation where I'll come back, he tells him before the trade deadline, but I'm not playing for you. So why don't you trade me, get something for me? I can go somewhere, where I'll be happier, and that kind of a scenario. But who knows? We'll just have to see. So just a interesting little factoid. It's Saturday night as I'm recording this on January 11th. And the Ravens and the Tennessee Titans are playing a wild card game. Well, not a wild card game. They're playing, I don't know, whatever the hell it is, quarterfinals, semifinal game. I don't know, whatever the NFL calls it. But as you probably noticed, if you watch the game, Tennessee Titans have a rather large running back named Derrick Henry. He's this big beast. They give him the ball. He runs into the line and gives defensive players concussions. Looks like they're going to beat the Ravens, and that would probably mean they're going to go through New England and through the Ravens without throwing for more than 100 yards in either game. That's how big a beast Derrick Henry is. Big Buff is bigger than Derrick Henry. Think about that for a minute. Derrick Henry apparently is 6'3", weighs in like 240-ish. Big Buff is 6'5" and weighs in at I will punch you in the face if you ask me size. So when you're seeing Derrick Henry run into the line and just knocking linebackers and safeties on their butt, that's basically what Dufflin is doing on the ice. So it makes you feel a little more sympathetic to all those forwards. Actually, I don't. You know why? Because if you still believe in all this crappy rules, these little safety rules are passing, dude, if you skate down the ice with your head down over the puck, you get what you deserve. This is hockey, not ballet. Jesus, politically correct people kill me. So Alex Martinez, Jets give up a third-round pick for him. And then we get into the depth guys. Trevor Lewis. Yes, a good example, an experience. He's a great example for our other 15 bottom six forwards. The time has come. We appreciate your service, sir, and hope you enjoy whatever team we trade you to. And that team will be the Florida Panthers. They have an old school coach in Joe Quenneville who seems to enjoy adding bottom six gritty guys for the playoffs who has speed. Trevor Lewis doesn't really look very quick to me anymore, but that's, how people describe him. So it seems like it'd be a decent match. Let's say for a fourth rounder. And then 5, Ben Hutton. You've had a good sampling of Ben Hutton right now. You've seen the good. You've seen the bad turnovers. To me, depth guy. You could trade him to another team, get a 4th or 5th round pick. I'm going to say they trade him to the Canes for a 4th round pick. The reason being, there are rumors the Canes aren't all that happy with Gardner, who they signed in the offseason, and they may try to trade him. He just doesn't fit in all that well. And, of course, his reputation for performance in the playoffs when he was with the Maple Leafs, tad bit not good. So, looks to me like those are the guys that go. What about Jeff Carter? To me, Carter's really regressed lately. And I think maybe it's just because it's the grind part of the season, but whatever enthusiasm he had at the beginning of the season seems to have kind of gone away. And if you look at the time on ice that McClellan is giving him, you will see Todd seems to think so as well. Carter used to get 18, 19 minutes a night. Now he's getting 15. And a lot of that usually comes in, not a lot, but a good bit of it usually comes in, the last few minutes of a third period if the score is tight. But he looks like, I don't know, wear and tear, or I don't know what it is, but he's kind of, the bloom's kind of off of him. What about Cliffy? Well, to me, I would trade Cliffy. 100% I would trade Cliffy. And yes, I know he's a pillar of the Kings. He's our organizational standard. Absolutely. And if he really is, he should be in there begging Blake to trade him. Why? Because the Kings would get a draft pick. Let's say they get a 3rd or a 4th for him. Cliffy goes to whatever team, let's say, I don't know, Boston. Okay. He goes to Boston. He gives them the bottom 6 toughness and opportunistic scoring that they need. He gets a chance to play for a cup. And then in the offseason, he can come back here and sign again with the Kings for another year or two and mentor all of our bottom 6 forwards. His family can stay out here and live. Everybody wins. Kings get a draft pick. Cliffy gets to go play for a cup. The team that he plays for gets a good playoff player. And he gets to come back here and sign. His family never has to move. Slam dunk. Seems pretty easy to me. But Rob Blake is a softy who carries around little tissues that he cries into. So I'm sure sentimental Rob will not trade him. Although there is some hope. Ron Hextall apparently is having more and more influence. And we all know, if you know anything about Ron Hextall, sentimental is not his, not a characteristic with him. I cut you off at your knees. So we'll have to see. But anyways, those are my top 5 picks. So what would we end up with? First rounder for Toffoli, 2nd for Campbell, let's say a 3rd for Martinez, and what the heck, 2 fourths for Lewis and Hutton. Are all those trades going to happen? No, but you think that certainly it's a chance of those. Obviously, Toffoli, Martinez, and Lewis would seem to be the most obvious. But we need to pick up picks. And these picks are important, even though we're talking, 2nd or 3rd round picks or what have you. Keep in mind some of the guys you're watching, that you watched in the World Juniors that you were impressed with, they weren't 1st round picks. Fajimo, obviously, big example. Kaliev, although I think, he has the potential, obviously, to have probably gone up in the 1st round. Kaliev's going to be an interesting player. He's got boomer bust just written all over him. Yes, he can score, but can he skate and defend it at an NHL level? We're going to find out. So the Kings positives overall, just watching the last few games. I finally been able to watch hockey games again after a hellish December of work. And I think I have to give credit where credit's due. The tease is back. Adrian Kempe. And he's done this in the past. Every year he seems to go through about, maybe a 5 or 10 game stretch where he looks like, holy shit, this guy could be good. And then he goes 20 games without scoring. But this looks different. This does look a little different. One, he's away from center. So he looks, even though he said he wanted to play center, he looks freer. I don't know any other way to say it. He doesn't look as hesitant. That was the whole problem with his game. He was so passive and hesitant and not aggressive at all. Now he's aggressive. You see him out there. Give me the puck. Get the hell out of the way. And it seems to have found his spot, 3rd line wing. And I think most people thought that's kind of what he is. So hopefully this is it. Hopefully he's turned the corner and, we go this way forever. Because if we do, he would probably be good for 15 to 20 goals a year. And, the speed and everything else cause a lot of trouble. If you're getting 15 to 20 goals out of your 3rd line winger, you're pretty happy with that. That's the kind of secondary scoring that helps you win a cup. So that would be a really positive sign. Now, there's a reason he's given the nickname the Tease, apparently among GMs around the league. So we'll have to see. Consistency, can he do it, for great lengths of time? That's what we need to wait and see. So hopefully he can do it. And then finally, the Bill Parcells quote of the year. The old cliche, you are what your record says you are. I think we can all agree the Kings look much better this year as a team. But what's their points projection for the season? After tonight's loss to the Canes, it is 69 points. Yes, 2 worse than last year. That's kind of scary, huh? Dig out.